Back with you on the Newsfeed PM. Thanks for staying on. Economic growth and transformation dominated discussions at the Institute of Retirement Funds Africa 2025, their annual conference. Industry leaders at the gathering say Africa's retirement fund industry, which manages trillions of rands, is in collective assets, is on the brink of a transformative juncture. IRFA Executive Director Hiller Van Rensburg joins us now for more on that conversation. Wayne, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. Talk to me about the Institute of Retirement Funds Africa. What exactly is that organization? What do you do?
We represent the interests of the pension sector. We primarily have two functions. One is advocacy function, which we take very seriously, and that is to try and support policymakers and decision makers to develop better policies to better serve all members and to ensure that we get outcomes that benefit the system as a whole and all the stakeholders. And then a secondary and equally important element is to share information to decision makers, to beneficiaries in the pension sector, so that they understand what all of this means, or try and understand better what it all means, so that they can navigate the complexities often of these things.
So talk to me about the complexity of inclusivity or transformation, if you like. When you have that conversation, where do you pitch it? Where does it begin when we are speaking of retirement funds?
Sure. When you talk about inclusivity, and I think maybe a broader conversation around financial inclusion across the globe, in Africa in particular, for South Africa, we obviously have a very specific meaning, ensuring that the ownership of assets and the economy is more representative of everyone who lives here. I think that's true for the rest of Africa as well. And that transformation really talks to building and developing opportunities and investing in a way that enables economic growth for everybody in the environment, rather than, getting it stuck in the hands of a few people, like we see it in the rest of the economy. Well, not our economy, but the global economy.
Yeah, the transformation or radical transformation lobbyists would always raise an issue to say, well, there are trillions that are kept in retirement funds, but you never see these funds investing in communities, so building malls in communities, building schools in communities, and so on and so forth. What's preventing that from happening?
I think it's probably a few factors. The first being that the decision makers, when they have to make their investment decisions, sometimes don't have enough information or the skills to evaluate the opportunities. And then in the situations where people may have those skills, so that's part of the work we definitely do at the Institute of Retirement Funds Africa, is trying to build those skills. Then secondly, there is also talk of, well, not a talk, but a lack of these opportunities sometimes, where people say invest in infrastructure or bring projects, but the projects are presented just aren't suitable for various reasons, or not enough work has been done. So the big drive here is to educate people to understand the opportunity, and then secondly, where come together as pension funds or retirement sector and really teach the people preparing project what it is that we as a sector would need to be able to deploy that capital and build the communities.
Yeah. So a sector shift, as expressed by your president, of becoming catalyst of social and economic transformation. Where does that work begin?
It begins right now, and I think it's a continuing journey. Some of the the seeds have been planted. It's just having the courage and the knowledge to really drive that decision. And besides the knowledge not being there for the decision makers, I think that's also ensuring that the beneficiaries, i.e. the people who belong to the pension funds and the communities at large, also trust the decision makers when they make these investment decisions, to ensure that they know what they're doing. And that currency of trust for all the stakeholders, and particularly the beneficiaries, is the big one. So that is probably some of the big work that needs to be done outside actually deploying the capital, is building a trust and understanding of what this means for the member.
Yeah, certainly one of the things that is currently a conversation and maybe has been for a while is the lowest retirement savings coverage, particularly on the African continent anyway, if you look at it. What's at the heart of that? Could it be, I suppose, the economy of those demographics that does not allow them to participate?
I think there's an element of that, but there's also a large element of having designed products for an environment where the assumption was that people are employed, that the employer will probably facilitate the payments to the pension fund, and that needs to be regular. You know, there are a whole lot of design features that really drive this towards someone who's in formal employment, where we know that, I think the stats are around 80% of African are not formally employed. And it's developing those pension fund opportunities that allow for people who aren't formally employed to make the investments and to do these investments as and when they have the extra bit to save. Because, I mean, the reality is that we are savers in Africa. It's just that we do it in different ways.
Yeah.
So there is a trend to develop these kind of products.
Ghana is looked at as one example, I suppose, in how the funds or the fund could be used in infrastructure investment, particularly in South Africa. That's what we're talking about, investment in infrastructure. What did they get right in policy? What did they get right? Maybe, I suppose, is it a question of political will? What did they get right in collaboration to be able to make this happen?
So I think it's a combination of all the things you spoke about. Firstly, it's the individual organizations coming together and putting together a clear example of what it is that they need and how it needs to be directed. Then working with the policymakers and the government to ensure that they create the right environment, legal, regulatory environment to deploy these things. And then thirdly, also building that capacity to monitor the ongoing investment. So it really is about a collective will and then partnering with everybody in the process. And obviously, very importantly, the people developing the infrastructure products, infrastructure projects.
Yeah. Indeed. And when you look at the success of Ghana and the degree of collaboration that would have taken place there, what are the hurdles do you think that would still face as South Africa to get to that level?
I think we've started. There's definitely a journey that we've started. Our hurdles are that we just it's that we haven't come together enough as a sector. There really needs to be a greater drive for all the various pension fund leaders to say we want to do this as a collective, and we need to build collective resources to do that. Yeah. There's some initiatives that have started that, but it's not at any level of maturity that can see the potential investments that are out there.
Wayne, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. IRFA Executive Director Wayne Hiller there.